I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to talk about one of the absolute best performance modifications you can make to your motorcycle. I don't care if it's a sport bike, a sport touring bike, whatever it is, cruiser, and that is installing a set of stainless steel Spiegler brake lines. Okay, from the factory, almost every bike comes with rubber brake lines. It's a hydraulic system, right? The brake system. You grab the lever or step on the pedal, and what happens is the fluid is pumped via the master cylinder through the calipers, squeezes the pads against the rotor, and that's where you get your stopping from. Now, think about it. The rubber, right, it expands. Especially under really hard braking, it'll expand even more and give you kind of a spongy feeling, and you're actually losing braking power, and it forces you to squeeze the lever a lot harder. When you install a set of stainless steel braided lines, it dramatically reduces the amount of expansion, so you get more power to the calipers, which in turn increases your stopping power. Now, here's another big benefit, right? Like, this is Regina's bike. She works in our accounting department here at STG. Obviously, it's her street bike. It's highly customized, got a glow-in-the-dark wrap on it, custom paint. Now you look at the brake lines. We've got white lines with red fittings, and we're going to use red banjo bolts. That will replace all of this bulky stock black tubing, and you pick up a real nice aesthetic benefit. What does it take to do this? Okay, can you tackle this at home? Watch the video, make your own determination. End of the day, you follow the steps we're going to lay out. This is something I feel almost any rider can do if you take the time, follow through, and exercise patience. Very basic hand tools are needed for this, right? Talking Phillips screwdriver, 8, 10, 14 millimeter wrench. I've got an 8 millimeter quarter drive universal on an extension. I have 3 T-handles, 6, 5, and a 4, and then I have a 6 mil Allen wrench. New brake fluid, I've got some brake cleaner. Very important here, rags. You don't want to get any brake fluid on the paint. Remember, brake fluid eats paint. It's okay if you get it on there. If you get it on there, you're going to want to clean it off right away. Okay, you don't really want to use the brake clean on the paint. Brake fluid's water soluble, any type of water-based cleaner, right? You can spray it on, wipe it off. So make sure you have something like that handy. The place I like to start is I like to empty the brake system completely, get all the fluid out of the brake system. So we're going to start up here by removing the safety for the brake reservoir on the front master and sucking all of the fluid out. To do this, I'm going to use a power brake bleeder, air support. Not everyone's going to have that, right? Go ahead and say go to the store, buy like a new turkey baster or something, right? Suck the fluid right out till it's dry. It's going to give you a good chance to clean out your brake fluid reservoir, okay? This service is going to allow us the opportunity to completely change out and flush the brake fluid. We have a compressor here, so I'm going to use the power tool. I will then clean the reservoir out completely, okay? Doing this really helps to reduce the mess, right, that can be made during this process. If you do a good job draining the system, you won't have really any spillage to speak of. We're even going to come down here at the calipers and use the power bleeder to do this. You could do this by gravity bleeding. I've got all the lines empty, right? The system is as empty as it can possibly be. So now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to go around and all the mounting points, right, for the lines. I'm going to go ahead and get all the hardware off there and basically get the lines to a point where all that's left to remove are the banjo bolts. For this motorcycle, that's a pretty simple procedure. We've got one at each caliper, right? Mounts right to the fork bottom. And then we have another mount point that is on the steering head. Okay, all the mounts have now been undone. This is where you definitely want to be ready with both rags and cleaner, okay? So, here on each side of the bike, I'm now going to break loose that factory banjo. Notice I'm right there with a rag immediately, okay? Factory banjo, which will not be reused. The crush washers, you never want to reuse, okay? That's something, anytime you're servicing that, should be replaced. Now notice how I've set that in there. I've got the rag to absorb anything that would come out. I'll do the same on the other side. And then we'll go up to the master cylinder. In most of the videos, I'm going to tell you to keep everything you take off, all the stock hardware. One of the only things I'm ever going to tell you to throw away and do what you want would be the brake lines. There is no reason in the world to keep those. Now, okay, we're going to come up here and get ready to do that. Make sure I can get the Allen in there. Okay, let's grab a rag now. And just have it in position in case we have a little spillage. A little tighter up here with the stock throttle. Let me actually try and loosen that throttle tube up just a little bit. Just so I've got a little free play in that. It's going to help me. Okay, and crush washers, get all that stuff off. And there's the brake line. Now we'll be ready to pull this out. Looks like we've got a little cable tie I need to cut there. I'll get some side cutters. Okay, cable tie right there. We are now ready to completely remove our stock brake lines. And I'm going to take this right back to the can and get ready. Okay, let's go ahead and mock the lines up and see how they fit. Remember, with Spiegler, you're able to actually rotate the fittings on the line to really get a perfect fit, so you don't have any binding of the line. Also, if you look, they have this stuff clearly marked because this is an alternate 2-line kit. This is the first one to the front master. This is the second one. This goes to the left caliper. This will, of course, then go to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just feed them up into position like so, right? And let's get a sense for how these are going to fit and see if we need to make any adjustments. Taking your time here has everything to do with how well the project is going to turn out. So this is where you really want to take your time and make sure you do a great job. Okay, after mocking the lines up, I decided that I do want to rotate this fitting here. Key part to this, they supply some tools, okay? One thing I want to make sure that you do is have the ferrule for the brake line nice and dry, clean and dry, okay? That's going to allow the tools they supply to get the best possible grip on it as we rotate it. The easiest way to do this is by using a vise. If you do not have access to a vise, another way to do it would be using, vise grips, perhaps a pair of channel locks to hold the blocks, the adjuster blocks, okay? A vise is going to put the most even possible pressure on it. That's really the key to this procedure, is having good even pressure so you're able to rotate the fitting on the line. You can see that happens really pretty easily. Okay, save the tool in case we need to use it on the rear nut line. Now we're ready to go over to the bike and begin installing. Okay, this time when I feed the line up in there, we're going to have the banjo bolt along with the crush washers ready to go. So we can actually thread this into our master cylinder. This is a double banjo because we have 2 brake lines up at the master on this particular bike. So, also when you take the sticker off, let's make sure this is also a good clean surface. If you have any adhesive or anything on there, let's just go ahead and remove that now. So we're going to go banjo, crush washer, through the line. We need a crush washer between the 2 lines. Let's remove the other sticker. Go ahead and hit that with a little cleaner, get the adhesive off. Put that on there, and then we need a third crush that is going to go between the line and the master itself. Now we're ready to feed them up into position. Obviously, you want to hold on to that banjo so you don't lose that in all your washers that you just slid on there. I'm going to try and do this with the throttle housing right where it's at, okay? If it proves to be in the way, what I will do is just simply loosen things up a little more to improve the level of access that I have. We'll see what I can do here first to begin with. Starting this is critical, okay? This is an aluminum banjo bolt, right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to start its life off being cross-threaded into that master. The angle here is pretty close. It is possible that I may need to loosen up the master itself to allow me to thread this in. And we'll go ahead and do that now. Okay. Now I'm able to wiggle that around to improve my access. And get that banjo bolt started. What you want to do is you want to run it down finger tight until it's right up against the two brake line fittings. I've got it started. I'm going to go ahead and get it finger tight, and then we'll start working down by the calipers. Got that done up there. Remember, nothing is tight right now. And now I want to go ahead and get this bolted on down here at the calipers. We're going to use a single banjo with 2 crush washers. I didn't mention it earlier, but this is obviously a current gen R6. Build date is 3 of 2012. So this will be relevant on quite a few bikes. The procedure at the end of the day, regardless of make or model, is very similar. Go ahead and start this. Some of the bikes will come with actual mounting hardware that'll look a lot like the stock hardware. The way the R6 is set up, it doesn't need it, okay? A 2-line kit on this bike installs real nice, real clean, without using any of that hardware. Okay, banjo, crush washer, through the fitting, another crush, and we'll go ahead and run that in. Once again, only finger tight. Okay, double check the routing now. Key element within this is going to be when we get the motorcycle off of the work table itself, okay? I'm going to want to be able to turn the handlebars back and forth and make sure I don't have any type of restriction. I don't want the line catching anywhere, no binding, no restrictions. I like what I see, so now I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the banjos, starting here at the master cylinder. I want to try and have both of these lines, right, parallel with one another so that when they're tight, everything is nice and evenly spaced. Snug like that. I'll probably tighten up my master now to make this a little easier if that's not moving around on me. When you tighten your master, always tighten the top one first, okay? You're going to tighten that all the way, and then the remainder of the tension will come from the bottom bolt on the master clamp, like so. Aluminum banjos and crush washers. Torque on these, right, you do not need to torque these down, and they will not accept torque to extreme unnecessary levels. So be aware of that when you torque these down so you don't just end up destroying them. We don't really see many problems with that. But just be aware of what you're doing. Okay, torqued. And let's go ahead and continue down to the calipers. And over here. Okay. Everything is tight. What I want to do now is I want to put my fender mounts back in. Okay, these brackets are not going to be used now, right? We'll reinstall using the stock hardware to mount the fender up. We'll get that done. Clean out our brake reservoir, put some fluid in, and we're going to go through the bleeding process for the front brakes. Okay, During this process, I'm going to use a speed bleeder bag and hose kit. You can see this one is definitely well traveled. I've had it back here for a couple of years. We sell them on the site. It really makes bleeding the brakes on your bike a no mess process. It's a no-brainer of a purchase. Take care of it. You'll be able to use it during this service as well as maintenance on the motorcycle. We poured the fluid in there and I've kind of let it gravity down just a little bit. A couple of different things you can do. You could actually put a cable tie holding the brake lever open partially, right? And that really encourages the fluid to flow down into the calipers, because that's what it's all about right now, is just getting the fluid to start moving. Once we get the fluid to start moving, because remember, this whole system is dry, the process is going to happen really, really quickly, but it's all about that initial flow of fluid. We'll come down here and I'm going to put the speed bleeder hose, the bag hose, on this bleeder screw. Okay, and what I want to do here is, see that? We've just got it gravity feeding now. Bike sat for a couple minutes and you can see that the fluid is in motion now down through that caliper. So we've got ourselves a nice little start, and you can see that there is clearly a tremendous amount of air in the system. I don't know if the bubbles will pick up or not on camera, and you can actually see the fluid level begin to drop as we go through this process. So I'm going to let that happen for a couple minutes. I'll go over to the other side, do the same thing, and then we'll come up to the master cylinder and do a little there as well. Okay, we're done on the right side. I've refilled the master cylinder reservoir, and I'll come over here to the other caliper. I'm just going to do the same thing and see if we can get some immediate fluid flow here. Kind of give that a second. You can see there the fluid comes. Gravity is your friend here. Should get a little less air than we saw on the other side. And we'll let that go for a couple minutes. You know, I let it go through about half of the reservoir on the other side. And once I got it to go through half of the reservoir, the bubbles had slowed considerably. I tightened the screw and then removed the hose. Master cylinder, and this is a critical step here within this process, right? You definitely want to make sure the master is bled thoroughly. So let's go ahead and get that hose over the bleeder screw nipple, and let's see if we get any flow via gravity. May or may not. Kind of push the lever in about halfway and see if that'll allow some to start moving through there. Okay, really no fluid yet, so what we're going to do is tighten the screw, loosen the lever. I'm going to open the screw, depress the lever, close the screw, release the lever, open the screw, depress, tighten, release. I'm going to repeat this a few times until the bubbles are either eliminated or dramatically reduced. And we are definitely starting to get a lever now. I'm going to pump it about 3 times, hold it, and tighten it back down. Okay, now we're ready to go down to calipers, right, and bleed those through. When you're done, every bike's a little different, especially with the Stockmaster. When you're done, you should have a very firm brake lever, okay? Okay, now, yeah, we're definitely beginning to get a lever. I'm gonna pump it a couple times, hold it, open the screw, close it. Repeat this process. All the while I'm going to maintain a good brake fluid level. Okay. I'm going to go over to the other side now. And I think we're going to find there is a fair amount of air in the left side. The lever has improved pretty much each time. Definitely much firmer now. Okay, we're looking pretty good down at the calipers. I'm going to top the fluid off, and we're going to go back up to our master and bleed that again. Okay, go ahead and pump it up. Hold it. Hold it. Okay, master looks really good. Lever is very firm now. And I'm going to do this caliper one more time. I just feel like the lever could be just a little bit better, right? Fluid level is still good, so I don't need to top that off. And yeah, that's what I was looking for right there. Go one more time. Okay, we've got a really good clean fluid flow here. At the master, lever is good and firm. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick. While I'm doing the rear brake line, something that I like to do, and I typically, what I'll do with my race bikes, when I'm heading to the track, if I have serviced the brake fluid, is I will put a cable tie. Go ahead and top this off now. Never overfill your brake fluid, that is key. Get it right to that upper mark and stop, okay? The fluid's going to expand when it's hot, and if it doesn't have anywhere to go, you can end up with brake drag, okay? So it's very important that you do not overfill it. Now, I'll take 2 cable ties. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to literally hold that lever on like so, and we'll let gravity be our friend, and if there's any bubbles that are in the bottom of the system, they'll just kind of work their way up while we're sitting here on the work table. I'm going to clean up a bit, we'll come back and start working on the rear line. Okay, rear line, a little easier than the front, right? The routing is certainly a lot easier. But overall, basically the same procedure. First thing I want to do is I want to empty out this reservoir. Makes our lives much easier. Same process that I used on the front, I will utilize back here. Realistically, you could probably even just dump this thing over, okay? If you had like a little drain pan to catch it. Do that, come back and hit it back here at the bleeder screw and pull the fluid out of the line. Just keeps the job really, really clean when the system is totally empty. Now we're ready to disassemble. Okay, we have a couple mounting points here where the brake line is held to the swing arm. I'm going to go ahead and release these. These may or may not be reused. It's going to really depend on how the line routes once we install it on the motorcycle. Have rags ready, just like we did up front. Make sure we're catching any potential spillage. We have all new banjos and crush washers, just as we did for the front, so this will all be discarded as soon as we've removed it. Back here to the caliper. All right, and straight to the trash. Just like they did on the front, Spiegler has these fittings marked. Make sure I have an abundance of adhesive there. If there is, we can get it cleaned off. Now let's begin mounting this and see what it's going to look like for us. Okay, clearly the fitting here on the back is going to need to be rotated. All right, so I want to go over to the bench. I'm going to rotate that. I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. Just like we did on the other one, get it in the vise like so. And just a nice smooth motion like that. Save the tools in case we need to use them again. And I would say that's definitely much more appropriate. Kind of let it hang there, and let's grab our banjos and our crush washers. Get this all ready to go. Start up here at the master. So we've got banjo washer and another washer. Essentially what you want to do is you want to have a washer on either side of your fitting. And just finger tight for now. I think it's pretty obvious at this point the rear line is really the easiest of the two. It's pretty low hanging fruit. Right there. Okay. We're going to use each of the hold downs. You can see the routing was spot on. And let's get our 14mm wrench and torque our two banjos. Next up, we will need to clean out the brake reservoir. Just like we did in the front, fill the fluid and begin the bleeding process. Got a little fluid in the reservoir now. Grab a wrench, our handy speed bleeder bag and hose kit. Get that over the bleeder screw like so. And just kind of get a little gravity bleeding going, just like we did on the front. Kind of let it sit like that for a couple of minutes until you get some fluid flow. Okay, I let it sit for a couple of minutes. We really didn't have a lot of movement with the fluid. Not a big deal. It's a very simple system, very short here. So what I'm going to do is close the screw, open it, depress the brake pedal, close the screw, release the pedal. I'm going to repeat this process until we have fluid flow. Be sure to keep an eye on the brake fluid in the reservoir so that you don't run it dry, because that'll put you right back at square one. And there we go. Fluid is on the move. Like I said, much simpler than the front. Okay, get a little top off here. And we're just starting to get a pedal now. And there we go. Nice, solid brake pedal. I'm going to pump it up, hold it down. And we'll repeat that process a couple times. Once again, keep your eye on your fluid. You do not want to run out. And if you do all this just right, okay, front and rear, you should have just enough fluid in that bottle, right, to get you through. Okay, now I want to make sure the fluid level is not over full. Same concept as in the front. Okay, you want to have it around the upper mark. And that should bring it right to where I wanted it. Pedal feels great. Go ahead and pull this off. We need to cap and secure the reservoir. Let's make sure all of our bleeders and banjos are tight. Clean up, and we'll end the video with a short discussion about things you want to look for before you ride the bike. Okay, now the most important stuff to focus on right here. Okay, we've just worked on the braking system of the motorcycle. If you lose your brakes when you're riding, it's probably not going to be a good situation, right? So, double check, triple check, quadruple check before you ride. Then take a short ride, check for leaks, and make sure everything's good before you go on a long ride. Now, if you remember when I put that little cable tie on here, right? I mean, look at the difference in that lever. And it only sat like that for about 10 minutes, and you have all that improvement, okay? The other thing that'll do is it keeps pressure on the lines. What I did is I walked around and I really checked all of the front banjos to make sure that we didn't have any seepage. Everything looked really good. Do the same for the rear, okay? Depress the brake, take a look at both fittings, make sure you don't have any weeping brake fluid. Also very important, the routing of these is quite different than the stock lines was. You saw that, right? These look a lot better. They also fit a little different. So what I want you to do is I want you to double check your clearances up here while you're rotating the handlebars and make sure you have no binding, no catching, nothing that could present a possible safety hazard on down the road. The cable tie that we had up here before, I don't know that I really see a need to replace that, so we're just going to let that go. Double check your throttle too. You've had that loose. Make sure you don't have any binding of it. Make sure everything is tight. And then that short test ride, right? Short test ride before you take a long ride. This is it. This is a Spiegler brake line install on a 2012 Yamaha R6. Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com.